And now we are closer to kickoff, just mere hours away. And I got to be honest with you, I'm feeling a little bit better. Not great, but a little, mostly because the Minnesota Vikings went out there and embarrassed themselves on Thursday night, which was great. That is something that is giving me life at the moment. This is one of those things that my team is so bad or has been performing so poorly. Like, I can just kind of enjoy the fact that Minnesota is out there. And again, like I said on Sunday, after they lost to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, that we should, not celebrate too hard because we have our own game to play. But now that we have a little bit of room in between these, I think I'm going to go ahead and celebrate just a little bit, just like we did last night. And they lost to the Eagles, and when they lost 2 weeks ago or a week ago to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Speaking of which, that's our opponent this week, and we're going to be talking about it with JC Allen. So, Sammy, I don't want to wait any longer. Let's start the show.
Turn up your volume. Because you're about to listen to The Sick Podcast with Adam Ray.
Trying to cut it back. Justin Fields making magic happen. There goes Fields. Touchdown.
The sickest Chicago Bears and fantasy football podcast. Brought to you by Underdog Fantasy. Sports entertainment like no other. It's gonna be sick.
Welcome to the Sick Podcast with Adam Rank. I am the aforementioned Adam Rank, and we've got a great show for you lined up today. We've got some things to go over. We've got some feelings to work through. But right now, it is time for Rank's Rival. And joining us here this week, he is a reporter for the Bucs Report. Or excuse me, he's a reporter for the Bucs Gameday. I'm so sorry, JC. Let's bring on JC Allen. Buddy, how are you? I'm so sorry. I already botched it right off the top.
It's all good. Yeah, I'm over here with Bucs Gameday, powered by Sports Illustrated, which is a lot of fun over there. Just joined them this season after spending 2 years with Pewter Report. So excited to get things going over there, but excited to be here to chop it up with you about this matchup, Bucs Bears. It seems like they've played each other so many times, obviously being together in that NFC Central Conference. Bears getting the edge, quite a few wins there. I think it's 40-21 lifetime and 61 matchups, but the last couple seasons have been a little bit different. So, and I think this game has a chance to help the Bucs kind of even the edge a little bit in that matchup series.
Well, I hope that one day that it doesn't turn out like it's turned out with the Packers, where now we're behind them, where we've owned, because the Bears have been around forever, and like you said, in the NFC Central, a lot of the kids watching today will be like, "What do you mean?" Like, yeah, there was an NFL Central division. The Bucs were a part of it for some reason. Oh, I know why, because the Cowboys didn't want to move out of the East, and they wanted to keep all those natural rivals. But it's funny because, like, when you look at like these classic Walter Payton photos, a bunch of them are him leaping over the creamsicle clad Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So it was pretty good. So it's pretty cool. So it is a little bit, not a rivalry, but there's history, and it's cool. And it's a cool part of it. And even though I came out here and botched the intro like Sin Cara when he made his debut in the WWE, I'm sitting here before the show. And I want everybody to know this conversation is I was sitting there. Listen, I'll take a look. I'm familiar with you. I remember you from the Pewter Report. And so I was like, oh yeah, I go, because I always I always want to know if somebody's a wrestling fan or not, because otherwise a lot of my references won't land. They just won't. And it's like somebody's sitting there. I do this hit for Canada, and poor Ivanka just sits there and she just smiles when I'm making references to Mr. Perfect. And that's just the way that it goes. And so then I made a reference to Triple H not putting people over, and JC's all like, "You're a wrestling fan?" Like, if there is I think I'm more known as a wrestling fan than a Bears. How do you not know this? I'm offended.
My bad. I'm so dialed in at work. I barely have time to look everywhere else. I got the family, got a day job, I got everything. But now that I know, let's talk a little wrestling too, if you want. Yeah.
We will. Listen, we'll get to that in a little bit, but I do want to talk about the Tampa Bay Buccaneers because it was awesome in week one. We were rooting for you. We wanted to see you go to Minnesota and win that game. How what is up with I had the Bucs coming into the season. I had them pegged for right around 7 wins. I didn't think that Baker Mayfield was going to be as poor as people make him out to be. I had some questions about the squad, but how good could this Buccaneers team be?
Well, I have them finishing at 10-7 in my season predictions that came out last week. I think a lot of people were overlooking the Caleb Williams sweepstakes was never going to happen with this Bucks
Right.
team. A lot of people, the media, national media, just they're not local guys, so they don't understand. They just look at the roster and say, yeah, 3-14. But this Bucks team has so much talent on it. I mean, Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, Tristan Wirfs. You look on the defensive side, Levante David, Devin White, Vita Vea, Antoine Winfield Jr. There's just too much talent for this team to fail. Todd Bowles is an incredible defensive coordinator. We saw that last week. His ability to make adjustments in game, his ability to get his players in the right position to make turnovers. And I just thought that this is a team that is being severely overlooked. It all is going to ride right with live or die with Baker Mayfield. But even that, Baker Mayfield, through 5 years of his career, had 7 head coaches, 6 offensive coordinators. It's not a recipe for success. And the 1 year that he did have good success was in a version of the system that the Buccaneers run now under new offensive coordinator Dave Canales. So they were 11-5 that year. He had his best statistical season. And quite frankly, if the Browns defense could have stopped Chad Henne on 4th and 13, they're going to the AFC Championship game, and the whole landscape of the picture might not even be available. So, the season is going to ride and die with Baker Mayfield, but week 1 was off to a good start. Offensive started slow, but once they made those adjustments and switched into the different things that were working.
No, you're absolutely right, because when I was going to do my preseason predictions, I really did believe initially, I was worried about Todd Bowles being in a situation similar to what Lovie Smith was in last year with the Houston Texans. You look at a lot of the things that were going on, but as you said, as you started to investigate this team and investigate this roster, you're like, okay, they're a lot better. And they're in a division that's still winnable. I picked the Falcons to win this division, but it's not going to shock me if Tampa Bay ended up winning it. And one of the things too is that a lot of Bears fans, when they were looking at the schedule, they're like, well, we'll beat Green Bay. Well, Bucks win, and then our first loss is going to be the Kansas City Chiefs. But it shows that people have been overlooking the Buccaneers. But what was with the story? And this concerns me because the Bears have struggled defensively ever since, for a while now. But Baker Mayfield figured out the Viking. Not that there's any great mystery, but Brian Flores is a pretty decent coach, and Baker Mayfield figured everything out. What's the story there?
Yeah, so Rachaad White was on Bucks Total Access, and he was asked a question, and he kind of went off the rails with that one. He got quite a bit of a trouble for putting that out there in the universe, but Baker addressed it, and non-addressed it. We asked office coordinator Dave Canales. He's like, I'm not getting into that. Rachaad got in trouble for that yesterday. But yeah, I mean, he's a smart quarterback. There's a reason people forget. There's a reason why he was taken number 1 overall. He's got the talent, finally healthy. He's mentally healthy. After dealing with all the things that he had, he's humbled. But yeah, I mean, he figured out the quarterbacks, the signals from Brian Flores, and I haven't seen a quarterback in a long time. You saw, if you watch that game, he's checking everything, making different calls. And that's one of the things about this offensive system that's so great too, is that, they can run multiple different plays out of the same formation and with the same personnel on the group. And that allows them to kind of exploit what defenses are doing. And you saw that in that drive right before the second half. And especially after halftime, they came out, ran the clock down for 9 minutes before scoring another touchdown, and kind of took away that entire third quarter from the Vikings, and made it difficult for them to kind of mount that comeback. So, yeah, Baker, he's a smart guy, and we'll see what happens this week. The Bears are kind of dealing with some question marks. The defensive coordinator wasn't in the building yesterday, so who knows if he's going to go. Obviously, Kyler Gordon got placed on injured reserve yesterday with the Bears, so a little bit of an edge for Baker Mayfield to kind of figure out potentially what's going on this week.
Yeah, it's one of those things that I've been talking about all week with Baker Mayfield. And it's terrible for me to have to talk about this because I do have a duty, much like a doctor. Like I take a Hippocratic oath to give everybody the proper fantasy analysis when possible. But I like Baker. Like I've been telling people, like if you lost Aaron Rodgers, if Aaron Rodgers was your starting fantasy quarterback and you lost him, I'm like, why wouldn't you pick up Baker Mayfield? And especially, and I still need to look to see who was running the most slot routes for you guys, whether it was Palmer. It was Godwin. Okay. So Kyler Gordon is the slot corner. And so Tyreek Stevenson's is going to be lined up on Mike Evans or Palmer, and the backup is going to be on Chris Godwin, who could have a huge game this week as well. And so Baker does concern me because I've liked Baker. I think Baker is a pretty good quarterback, and like you said, with all the coordinators and all the head coaches, very reminiscent of what Jay Cutler went through in his career. And I don't know, they're both. Yeah, Alex Smith goes through this a lot. And so I think that given an opportunity, he might make something here with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And speaking of fantasy, though, I'll get this out of the way. Underdog Fantasy is the easiest way to play fantasy football. It's simple to get started. Go to underdogfantasy.com, or better yet, download the app, the Underdog Fantasy app, because it keeps you up to date on all the injuries. Puka Nacua suddenly popped up on the injury list. I found out because I have the Underdog app. So you go there, you sign up, first-time users. If you use the promo code SICK, your initial deposit will be matched up to $100. It is a great way to get started. We're going to be doing a guillotine league. And JC, I don't know if you've ever done a guillotine league. These are fun. And my friends and I just started getting involved in it. Underdog Fantasy is the place where you need to play in guillotine leagues. My friends, we try to do it with some of the other platforms, and we're doing it by hand. Underdog Fantasy takes all that. Like, they do it for you. You can start one in like week 4. And get like 10, 15 people, go at it. You're going to have a lot of fun. Keep a lookout for that. But Underdog Fantasy is a great place to play fantasy football. So we're worried about all those guys. Speaking of fantasy football, though, you mentioned Rachaad White. I love this Sean Tucker. He didn't get a lot of run in that first game. Is there ever going to be a chance that he could take over, or the Bucs committed in the short term to Rachaad White?
I think Rachaad for the short term is definitely the guy. I mean, he left a lot of meat on the bone last week. There was times where he made the wrong cut and just kind of ran into tackles instead of, getting into the open space and moving the ball downfield a little bit better. But he was really upset with himself after that game. I think Sean Tucker's got a lot though, and he'll be pushing him. He's the fastest guy in the room, and you kind of saw what he was able to do when he came in. Picked up a key first down. He's also, for a rookie, especially an undrafted guy, tremendous in pass protection and can utilize him out of the backfield as well. So he's definitely a good handcuff. Dynasty leagues definitely hold on to him as well. But I think Rachaad, this is his backfield until he proves that he can't do it. Now, it's always going to be a committee, right? Unless you have one of those top tier teams. I mean, even last week, Derrick Henry was outsnapped by Tajay Spears, which was crazy. But, you look at it and teams are going to more of that. Bijan Robinson outsnapped by Tyler Algier. There could be a point in time where Sean Tucker does outsnap Rachaad White, but right now this is his backfield. They're going to give him every opportunity to show he can be the guy. They love his vision, his patience, his natural running ability, his pass blocking, his receiving out of the backfield. He can be they've got three. They feel like they have three down backs on there with Chase Edmonds as well that can do a little bit of everything, and you can call them in any situation. So Rachaad White's the guy. But Sean Tucker will be breathing down his neck at some point this season, I think.
JC, I appreciate you dropping the fantasy knowledge like that. Carmen Vitale she's always scared. She's always scared. Like, I don't know anything about I'm like, do you know snap counts? Like, it's really easy. Like, you don't have to. I'll convert the points for you. You just tell me who's going to be the person. And so I love that kind of insight about this team. Sean Tucker, though, it feels to me, and this is my conjecture. You're obviously in the building. I am not. Sean Tucker feels to me a lot like last season when everybody had Ramondre Stevenson and then they dropped him. And then 4 weeks into the year, everybody's scrambling to get him back on their roster. I think there's a lot of people who, at my behest, picked up Sean Tucker last week. I'm like, just pick him up. Like, see what happens. And now he's getting dropped all over the place. People are like, you were wrong. You don't know anything. I feel like this is going to be one of those things that we're in the mid part of the season. We're talking about all these people who dropped Sean Tucker, and now they're chagrined, and now they're morose. I hope that doesn't start this week because I want the Bears to do well. But one of the things that really concerns me.
Oh, real quick, the biggest thing on Sean Tucker that stunk, right, is because I'm in a group fantasy league with some of my friends down here in Tampa and everything. And I actually broke the news that Sean Tucker was going to be RB2. So I was trying to hold on to that.
You can't do that. Yeah.
It was so late. The draft was like a week and a half later though. So I'm like, I've got to break this. But at the same time, and then I got scooped on Sean Tucker by my friends.
That's the kind of thing that's so frustrating sometimes because I play in my league of record with my friends that I grew up with. There's a couple of Rams fans. So obviously we were doing our draft, and everybody outside of one person. So 9 of the 10 guys were able to show up. It was a great time. And the 2 Rams fans, they cornered me. They're like, "Hey, what's up with Cooper Kupp?" And I'm like, and this is before everything really broke. And I'm like, you know what? I go, Cooper Kupp's more injured than they're letting on. Like he's probably going to eventually go on. I just have this feeling it wasn't announced. They're like, okay, thanks. They're like, well, who is the guy? And I'm like, again, like we're sitting there for our draft, but I still feel like, again, like I equate myself with being a doctor. No, I don't. But I'm like, I'm their friend, and I'm like, you know what? I go, I'll be honest with you. The guy that they really love is Puka Nacua. Like I know a lot of people don't know him. And then one of the guys actually played football at Washington and obviously knew him and was like, oh my God. So like Puka Nacua, like nobody drafted Cooper Kupp for 3 rounds. And then Puka Nacua goes in the 10th. Like it's tough for us to like our advantages that we would have, we give up to our friends. So it's always like a little bit of a disappointment. Right. And speaking of advantages, it feels like last week, at least for the Bears, Jordan Love was the least pressured quarterback in the NFL. Justin Fields was the most pressured quarterback. Let's get into the trenches here. How are the Bucs looking on the trenches? Is Justin Fields going to be running for his life? Are we going to be able to get to Baker Mayfield? What's going on there?
Yeah, I think it's going to be a day of pressures for Justin Fields in back-to-back weeks. Shaq Barrett looked really good. I mean, I know he's coming off the Achilles, but he's such an underrated run setter, but it's still a really capable pass rusher. There were times Vita Vea just blew up in the backfield and created for everybody else. Antoine Winfield Jr. has 10 sacks in 4 years for the Bucs. He can come at any time off the edge. Joe Tryon-Shoyinka looks really good as well. He's able to get to the quarterback. And there's going to be a lot of pressure, I feel, on him. As far as the offensive line for the Buccaneers, Luke Gedeke, who's making that switch back to right tackle, his college position, and Cody Mock were the 2 question marks, right? One's a rookie, one's a second-year guy. Less than ideal arm length if you want to, go on that route. But they did let up 1 sack on the day to Danielle Hunter. But it was kind of really on Baker Mayfield. It just kind of collapsed, and tremendous effort by him. So when you see that the Vikings get 4 sacks against the Eagles line, and Justin, what's his name? Jalen Hurts. That kind of gives you like a pause, like maybe the Bucs offensive line wasn't as bad as some people thought. And I think, the more time they have chemistry, continuity together, they only played like 3 drives in the preseason. That's one of the things. Without that 4th preseason game, you're seeing less and less starters play in the preseason. So with more continuity and time and chemistry together, I think they're going to be go from like a potential weakness of this team, not to a strength, but to something that's not a liability at all. And Tristan Wirfs he's going to be the highest paid left tackle in the league at the end of this year. He's just incredible.
Yeah, he was a great pickup. And again, that started the Super Bowl run. Obviously, you bring in Tom Brady, but the key was getting in Tristan Wirfs, who just solidified that offensive line right off the bat and has been great. And so I think that this is the most troubling thing for a lot of us Bears fans is that, again, coming into this season, we're like, well, we'll win the Bucs game. And now it's the more and more as I get into this week and the more and more I feel about it, I feel like I just want the Bears to look like they have an identity. I think that's the number one thing. Like, look like you have a game plan this week. I don't know. Last week was not encouraging that from that respect. And you guys, and that's the thing. And like Todd Bowles, again, like a guy who didn't quite work out with the New York Jets. You think if it's kind of an afterthought pick, perhaps, as the national media was mistakenly putting them into the Caleb Williams Derby. Not the case. And this team looks pretty good and it looks solidified. Now, before I let you go, I do have to ask you, I don't know if you're the proper age to ask this question too. So if you weren't alive for this, you can let me know. Monday Night Wars, were you DX or were you NWO? Oh my gosh.
The Generation X, baby. I was loyal to WWE. It was one of those flipping, I'd flip over, flip back, flip over, flip over. But yeah, I was loyal to WWE. I love the NWO. Definitely one of the most iconic groups of all time. But I was at WWE, Stone Cold, The Rock, the Generation X. Those were my guys. Why were you on the WCW side?
Yeah, I was a huge WCW mark. I was because I love Diesel. I love Shawn Michaels, Diesel, and Razor Ramon. And I love those guys. So when they jumped over, and the kids today don't understand, you were watching it. We didn't have the benefit of the internet of everything being tipped off. They just and they made it seem like it was a real, like, oh my God, like Razor Ramon is on Nitro for whatever reason, like what's going on. And they even leaned into it until the lawyers got involved and said like, hey, knock that off. You can't quite, this is WWE or WWF at the time, intellectual property. So I was fully invested in the NWO. I do know, and it felt like WCW was going to take over, but I think that the huge thing is my friend whose house we would go over to watch the pay-per-views and stuff when we were kids. I ordered an NWO shirt at the same time that he ordered an Austin 316 shirt. My WCW shirt came within like 4 days. It had a bunch of swag and like extra things and stickers and keychains and all this stuff. Like they were going overboard to make me a fan. The inventory for Austin 316 shirts were so sold out that my friend didn't get his for 3 months later. And at that point, you're like, maybe the WWE is bigger than we thought. And so, what? And
NWO, was it black and red for you, or was it black and white for you?
Always black and white. I didn't get in, although once they got into the Wolfpack stuff, you started. I mean, it was good. It was good because it was Nash, and it was Nash.
Sting. I mean, I love WCW too. I'm big, I'm Dallas Page. I love, Booker T over there as well. I liked a lot of the things they were doing. WWE was so raw and cutting edge. I was hooked on that. When Stone Cold or DX or Rock were doing a promo, I was must see TV.
Right.
And then Kane came around too, like Shawn Mike. So. I loved WCW, but WWF was always my thing. So
that was absolutely.
I was going to say, I'm happy too because Royal Rumble just got announced in Tampa, so like I'm so stoked. Like I can't wait to go to that.
There's our tie into Tampa. Yes, the Royal Rumble is my favorite pay-per-view. So perhaps I will join you down there. I'm going to start making my arrangements. I'm going to start making my arrangements now to be in Tampa for the Royal Rumble. But JC, I want to thank you for coming in and talking a little bit about the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. It doesn't make me feel better about what's going to be happening this weekend. And I think it's partly my own fault because I have so much angst with the Chicago Bears right now. But I want to thank you and let everybody know where they can follow you, where they can keep up to date with you. So when this week's, because obviously if anybody's listening to this, a great fantasy insight too. So where can we follow you? Where can we see your work?
Yeah, I always say I'm a fan of football first. If my team was to disappear off the planet, I would still follow the league. So if you're one of those people who just want to know about football, be well informed, and learn more about the Buccaneers, especially this week, you guys can follow me at JC Allen NFL on Twitter. We're one-stop shop for all Bucs, whether it's my amazing content I'm putting out, which I think is amazing, anything that has to do with the Buccaneers-related stats, analysis, tape breakdowns, all on my page. You can follow it there, and you can find all my work at Bucs Gameday, powered by Sports Illustrated. So at Bucs Gameday is where you can find all of my work. At JC Allen NFL is my Twitter page. Please give me a follow. I'll follow you guys back, and I appreciate you having me on here. Great to chop it up with you.
No, this was excellent. Thank you so much. And I'm sure I'll be hitting you up over the next couple of weeks being like, when is it Sean Tucker's turn? But we appreciate you joining us here today. There he goes, the great JC Allen. Thank him so much for being here. A little bit of an insight. Sorry for everybody. Listen, sometimes I indulge myself and talk a little bit about professional wrestling. And speaking of indulging yourself, Game Room Chicago, located at the historic Chicago Athletic Association Hotel right across from Millennium Park, features billiards, shuffleboard, skee ball, pop-a-shot, and more. And it has plenty of space to watch your favorite football game, like perhaps this weekend when the Bears are on the road in Tampa Bay. With a menu featuring Michelin-starred chef Mari Katsumura's snack foods, beer towers, a weekend Bloody Mary bar, and shareable signature cocktails, Game Room Chicago is the place to be for and on game day. They will be showing all the games in addition to the Bears, and it's a classy establishment. Sometimes when you're sitting there and you want to bring a person who it might not necessarily be a huge football fan, might not necessarily be a Bears fan, but if you take them to some place like Game Room Chicago, it is an experience. It is classy. You feel good about yourself. It's not like going to some dive. And listen, sometimes you want to go to a dive. That's fine. Sometimes you want to class it up a little bit. Game Room Chicago is the place to be. I hope to get there this season. Oh, I want to do it. And I'm going to dress like George Halas. I'm going to have on the fedora, no ball caps. I'm going to put on a fedora. I'm going to put on a tie, and it's going to be a great time. Now, I do want to say this. And so I'm a little, I want to put this out there because I know I've seen a lot of people talking about this over the last couple of days, and we're talking about Justin Fields in the future. And I don't think that anybody's giving up on Justin Fields. I still think that Justin Fields is going to be an excellent quarterback in the NFL. He is going to be, I hope that it is with the Chicago Bears. I want it to be successful. But at the same time, we have to look at the situation rationally. There was something about this team that we saw on Sunday that was disturbing. It was a lack of preparation, a lack of awareness, or a lack of urgency or anything. The Packers came in with a game plan. The Bears looked like somebody woke them up that morning, like, you got to run to the stadium. We're going to play a game. You're like, what? Okay. I've seen people show up late for golf more prepared. You know, like when you show up to a golf, like you're sitting there and your buddy shows up and you guys are already on the tee box. They show up, they're digging through their bag for some golf balls, some tee. Oh, you have a tee. What's the yardage? Can you give me it? Like, no, have your stuff prepared. Be ready to go. And that's one of the things that's the most disappointing about this week is that not only did the Bears show up late, scrambling to find, their yardage sticks or whatever, they also had Starbucks in their hand. Like, you had time to stop on your way here to get coffee, but you're not prepared and you're making me wait here on the tee box. That needs to change this week. And, we saw last year after an embarrassing loss to the Commanders, it was a mini bye, but they went into New England with a solid game plan, taking advantage of Justin Fields' skill set and everything like that. That's what I hope happens. That's what I want. I've actually now gone to the point where I want to win. I want to be victorious. What I really want to see now is I'm starting to get knocked off my perch of perhaps this team being a playoff squad, but more of the fact, just have a plan. Last year when the Lions were struggling 2-6, at least you would watch some of their games okay, they're competitive. They're a little bit fun. I want this team, I'm now longing for the time last year when the Bears were losing, but were entertaining, scoring 30 points and losing. Do something. Show me signs of life. And so I hope that next week, when we sit down with Tyler Scott on Tuesday, when we do Take It to the Rank with Carmen Vitale, when we're doing rank, that we have something to draw on that leads us to believe that this team could be doing something and moving in the right direction. That's where it's come to. I've gone from, I hope we win the division, to I hope we're just invested. We have a game plan, and I want to see more effort. I want to see stuff out of Chase Claypool. I want to see more targets for DJ Moore. DJ Moore's done well against this team. Go out there and I want to win, but just show me something. So again, I am positive. Listen, you look around the league, Lamar Jackson struggled. Some other quarterbacks struggled. Nobody's talking about that. They only talk about Justin Fields, JT O'Sullivan, all those guys, Tim Jenkins, all those. The only guys they care about are Justin Fields. He draws clicks because we're the Bears and we're that kind of fan base, which is good and bad. But listen, let's go out. Let's regroup. Let's go have a day against Tampa Bay. Don't be discouraged. Show up. Do what you can. We'll be there. We'll be ready to go. I want to thank everybody for being here today. JC Allen was great. Great guest. We're going to have him on. I think, again, at some point, we're going to probably start bringing him on just to talk fantasy and maybe a little bit of wrestling. But he was a great guest. We loved having him. We love having all of you here. Thank you so much for leaving your comments. Make sure you like and subscribe. Perhaps share this with one of your friends. If you are in the Southern California area, we will be going back to Rip Beer Company this week. Unfortunately, it's AYSO Picture Day, which means we will be a little bit late. So the Commanders guy, who is also there a lot too, he's coaching the extras team. So we're both talking about this. Should we send somebody ahead of time, but go there? We'll be at Rip Beer Company at some point on Sunday to watch the Bears be victorious over the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And of course, if you're in this Chicagoland area, Game Room Chicago is the place to be. So for everybody here, including Sammy, my guy, go ahead and play us out, bear down, and we'll see you on Tuesday.
And that's a wrap. Hope you don't miss us too much until next time. Follow the Sick Podcast with Adam Rank on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, Google Play, and Apple Podcasts. Brought to you by Underdog Fantasy.